my mom got me gold standard protein from Costco one day, and I was drinking like 3 of those a day, and it was helping me get bigger pretty fast. And she was like, "Are you sure that's good for you? Like, is this what those bodybuilders do?" Like she thought protein was steroidal.
Steroids.
Oh man,
it's kind of anabolic, right?
Especially as a kid, man. You overeat protein, lift, eat, you're gonna grow.
I'm loving protein right now. I did the after we had Dan Gardner here.
You did a whole block of fat-free cheese.
No, but I started just having protein shakes. Like, I know we talk about doing this all the time, like with like food or like just load up on more protein. But like I will literally sit down and then I'll drink a protein shake and then I'll start eating. Man, it really, like, it makes me feel so much fuller. So like I've taken the 10 eggs down to 8, which I know is like, oh, okay, 2 eggs. But like I feel full, and like, I don't know, the scale's been going down a little bit. So everything's feeling good.
Did you take it down a notch for social pressure?
What do you? Oh, because too many eggs or what?
Yeah, I don't know. Yeah, people are up your ass about the 10 eggs. Be yourself, man.
Whenever I post a picture of my fridge, people are like, "Dang!" Because y'all have like 2 racks of just fucking a bunch of eggs. You gotta have them.
You gotta lean into that, man. You gotta keep the 10 eggs. It's like your thing.
Well, I can
answer all those things again. By the way,
thank you. I appreciate that. And yeah, I was like, well, I guess once I like try to like gain weight, I just have 12 and just do that.
Well, now that you brought it up, why don't you tell people where they can go to get the 10-egg omelet scramble?
Well, it's at 10egg.com. Use promo code Power Project and save 99%.
Oh, nice.
Yeah, it's just very expensive. It's $3 million.
3 guys, 10 eggs.
Eggs are expensive.
Yeah. Once inflation goes down, then they'll go back to the normal price of.
Hey, you got like a match coming up.
Oh yeah. Yeah. Pan Am's, man. It's coming up next
exciting.
week. Or if when we post this week. Yeah.
That's fucking cool. Training going good and stuff?
Training's going great.
That's awesome.
Training's going really good. Yeah. Been working on a lot of new stuff with the guard. Cassio's been helping out. I've been going over to Cowterra and San Jose and been doing competition classes over there with Mason, Fowler, and Jason Kalipa and Kyle. And it's really been pushing me forward. It's been really pushing me. So I'm excited. I'm really excited. It's been a long time since I've competed. It's been like since 2020. Late 2019 was my last competition.
Lifting feeling good, body feeling good, diet feeling good.
Everything's feeling really good.
Dropped a couple lbs.
246, baby.
Was that anything with the diet, or is that just like because you're probably training pretty frequently and maybe training even a little harder than normal?
I'm training more, but I'll just kind of clean things up as far as like the amount of carbohydrates I was eating and stuff. So yeah, I'm feeling very sharp. And no sex, right?
Nah,
I'm a nut before I leave. I think that's a myth now.
Is it?
I feel like it's a myth. I'm a nut, boost my test, and then go into that competition, increase testosterone.
I don't know, man. What if you're all frustrated?
I don't know, dog. Oh, God. I feel sharper when sex
when you're not
on my mind.
Yeah, you're not
clarity.
completely thinking about that.
Post nut with like, actual sex, not feeling, sad because I have this nut on my hand now. It's different. It's different, right?
It's different. I heard you making some noises in there in the gym today for the first time in a long time.
Oh yeah, man.
You were like actually moving around some weight.
No way, he was working out.
Well, I've seen him work out a bunch, but I don't know. I just haven't seen. I've seen him a handful of times, but yeah, a little bit. There's a little extra on it.
Yeah,
I'm happy for it. I'm excited.
Me too, dude. I think there's something to, even though like the way that we lift has changed, I think there's still something beneficial to the body feeling like it can handle heavy loads. And I've felt a difference too, adding in some box squats back in,
right.
How much easier those are feeling on a day-to-day basis. And then transferring that to when I roll, I just feel a little bit more pop, right? So I think bringing that back like conservatively is going to help out a lot.
Enough lifting to where you feel it when you are going against other opponents, but you're not. It's not like sitting in your joints and stuff like that.
Yeah, because it hasn't been. I've been doing box squats on a daily basis. Back feel, everything feels really good, and I feel really like it might be placebo, but I've even noticed like weird density changes in the way I look each morning.
There's something nice about walking around and just feeling strong. There's something that like feels really good about that, or just getting the input of lifting with a little bit more intensity. I've been lifting a bunch with Kenny lately, and we did like seated military press. I haven't done that in so long, and you know, the weight I was using wasn't very good. Like I'm just not proficient at overhead presses and never really have been. But it feels good to do sets sometimes of like 6 to 8 reps and to get that effort in there. And the intensity of the workouts is just high. There's a lot of volume, a lot of reps, a lot of sets. And
Anabolic activities.
Yeah, Kenny's just crushing it. So we're having some really good workouts together. And I just feel so much better. It's only been like 5 workouts together.
His nickname's the Peaker, but he really should just be the Fridge because he's just so wide. But like when he takes off his shirt, he has an amazing shape. He has a small waist, wide quads, wide shoulders. But when he has that shirt on, man, he fills out a 4X shirt at 5'10".
Yeah,
what the fuck?
I always tell him, like, dude, get those fucking shoulder pads off. They're ridiculous. It looks like he has shoulder pads underneath his
Truly does.
underneath his shirt.
Look at that. It's comical. Dude's a superhero,
That's
man.
wild.
So what do we got?
CORNFEDs, baby. We got some fucking Brazilian CORNFEDs. Andrew, do you want to explain CORNFEDs or just pull up the meme real quick?
I'll find it, and then as I'm looking for it though, like so basically, what was it? Somebody had mentioned like being a purple belt that you can kind of hold your own against anybody or something along those lines.
Yeah.
And then somebody in the comments was like, "Well, if he ain't at least 180, he's gonna have a hard time going up against these corn-fed white belts or something like that."
CORNFED meaning on steroids.
Yeah, so now corn-fed has now become a thing, and I don't know if you're gonna find the
acronym.
because JJJ.
Yeah, because underscore jitsu. A CORNFED is, yes, I'm CORNFED, crazy overroided, corn-fueled redneck destroyer. And they used Eddie Hall in the picture. I don't know if Andrew's going to be able to pull it up, but
That's a great picture of Eddie Hall, by the way.
it is.
Yeah.
But the big thing that happened is that recently 5 top black belts in jiu-jitsu got banned got 3-year bans because they popped for testosterone. One of them had even Tren in his system at No-Gi Worlds. It was the first and second play. Like, first off, IBJJF does test, but they don't test as often. But it seems like they chose to, there it is. They chose to really test at this competition. And a lot of the guys even ran from the podium because, they didn't want to get shit found. But USADA chased some of them even a few weeks later, and they still had shit in their system. So they've been given 2 to 3 year bans, and it's been huge. Yeah, there's a picture. Cyborg was supposed to be on the first podium, and in this video right here, Victor Hugo, who's one of the top black belts, was commenting how the first and second place kind of just left.
If some of the top guys are getting popped, it kind of makes you wonder, like, what's the rest of the field look like? They're mainly only testing the guys that are placing, right?
It seems that they're testing the guys that are placing, and that's actually a good
makes
thing.
sense. Yeah, that makes sense. Because if you're gonna, if you're gonna utilize it and utilize it as an unfair advantage, you're gonna be able to maybe get yourself up on the podium. But I'm still sure there's probably plenty of people that are losing the people that are on shit that would love to get them tested as well.
Yeah. Cyborg. It is interesting because, for example, there's ADCC, right, which is like the no-gi jiu-jitsu Olympics, where they're clear that we will not test any jiu-jitsu athletes.
That's where you see Gordon Ryan and those guys, and they're jacked as fuck, right?
And Gordon is open about being on PEDs because he says, well, it's legal within our sport, but within our sport on the side of ADCC.
Right.
Because the IBJJF, which does they have no-gi worlds and they have gi worlds in all their competitions. They're the biggest jiu-jitsu federation. They do have banned substances. They do have USADA testing. So the thing is, if an athlete goes and they compete in ADCC, where it's okay for them to take tests and Tren and all these things, but then they come and they compete in the IBJJF, well, if you're on shit, you can't be competing in the IBJJF. That's just the rules. But everybody has when it comes to jiu-jitsu, people look at it as being a very drug-riddled sport. Yeah.
If you get the Olympic committee involved, I believe, which I don't even know if it's the Olympic committee. I'm not sure if I'm saying that right. But if you get USADA involved, that's the governing body that tests people for performance-enhancing drugs that's associated with the Olympics. What they do is they won't allow you to participate in non-drug tested things. So that's like with the IPF/USAPL. I don't know if they still have the same rules and stuff like that, but sometimes you can even get, in that particular case, in powerlifting, sometimes you can get banished from the IPF and USAPL, which the USAPL is the American governing body for powerlifting. The IPF is the international. You can get banned from just having a coach, I think, that is somebody that is competing like in non-tested federation, something crazy like that, where you're like, wait, now you're checking in on like my friends and my coaches. Like this is getting to be kind of weird.
Yeah. But that's the thing. It's like, it's kind of odd. Like Cyborg had this post, and Andrew, you'll be able to pull it up because there's two really interesting posts about this. Cyborg mentioned how, I'm going to just summarize what he said. He's very big in the jiu-jitsu community. He's probably the biggest bust out of all of them.
He's won a world championship like 15 times or 12 times or something like that. Yeah.
He's won worlds quite a few times. And Andrew, did Cyborg do any type of MMA? Is that also how he grew? Because people know Cyborg outside of jiu-jitsu.
Yeah. Right. I believe so.
I think so.
Yeah.
But the big thing he was saying in his post was that, like, we train really hard. We don't get paid like professional athletes. We make our living with this training. We should be able to take things that allow us to recover and train as hard as we do. That was his big point. But the thing is, it's like, it's still a banned substance. So even though you have to train hard as an athlete, and this stuff, like whatever test probably does help you recover well, right? It doesn't really excuse it. It's still a banned substance within that federation, and that's not something that's new. It's like that's been how it's been for over a decade.
And this isn't like hard to know. Like you do jiu-jitsu, Andrew, like you hear guys talk about it. This is known that this league and this federation, they will test people, right? And you're not supposed to be on performance enhancing drugs.
Yeah, but the thing
is,
well
known, right?
It is very well known, but I think this crackdown has been something that hasn't happened like this before. You guys remember Felipe Pena, who was supposed to fight Gordon Ryan? He was popped twice. In 2015, he was popped in the IBJJF and given like I think a 2 or 3 year suspension. Then he was popped again in like 2020 in the IBJJF.
He just never came off.
But that's the thing. Like,
I love the commitment and consistency.
And the jiu-jitsu community he's a really technical guy. He's Brazilian. He's a great show of the sport. But he was popped twice. They popped Kenan Duarte, who's a really good competitor back in 2019. So it's not like they haven't been able to pop big competitors. It's just that doesn't seem that the testing has been as consistent as it's been now. So now people are going to be careful.
Yeah, that's really surprising because, like, whenever I would hear about professional athletes getting popped, it was never the dudes on the championship teams. It was never, it was always just like some random dude on the bench somewhere. And it's like, oh, look, let's make an example out of him. So, careful. So the fact that it's these 5 dudes and all of them won, or
all
they
were first and second places.
First and second place. So like, to me, that's making a really big statement. But from what you're saying, it's not the first time that they've actually cracked down and popped people, especially those at the top of the top level.
But it's been the first time that it's been so many at once.
Got it. Okay.
Because it's like when they popped Kenan Duarte, I don't know if they tested any of the other guys. And Kanan's jacked, right? So every time people have been popped, it's been like one competitor here, not 5 guys at the same time.
That's a lot.
Yeah. Power Project family, how's it going? Now, we've talked about blood work and getting your labs done on this podcast with many different guests, as that's super important for understanding what's going on underneath the hood. That's why we've been partnered with Merrick Health for such a long time now, owned by Derek for more plates, more dates. With Merrick Health, you can get yourself the Power Project panel, or you can select any specific labs you want to get. And after you get that done, you'll be able to work with one of Merrick's patient care coordinators, where they'll help you understand what type of nutritional, lifestyle, hormonal, or other type of interventions you can utilize to help fix whatever might be going on underneath the hood. Merrick is your one-stop shop to make sure that everything is going well underneath the hood. Andrew, how can they get their blood work done?
Yes, we have 2 options for you guys. Head over to merrickhealth.com/powerproject. That's MAREK health.com/powerproject. There you guys will see the Power Project panel that Nsima was just talking about. And at checkout, enter promo code PowerProject to save $101 off of that panel. Now, if you want to custom select your own panel, you guys can use promo code PowerProject10 to save 10% off all labs. Again, that's at merrickhealth.com/powerproject. Links to them down in the description, as well as the podcast show notes.
In track and field, I remember there was a case where they, I think they're like, all right, the first guy tested positive So we're going to give the gold to the second place guy. And then the second place guy tested, and it was like,
I think that was Lance Armstrong.
it's like, where do we, it might have been cycling.
Yeah, it was cycling.
They were like, where do we give the gold?
It
Okay, the last place guy won,
I could, again, same thing, I could be butchering it, but I believe it was the second to last place cyclist was the first one that came up an actual natty athlete. That's how far down they had to go.
There was also a famous American shot putter that won a gold medal at the airport because he won his medal, like, I don't know, a couple years prior or a year at least prior. But he actually finished second at the actual event because he lost to somebody that later on got popped. So could you imagine, like, that's just like,
that would suck.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, that doesn't, I wonder what that feels like. Like, maybe he still celebrated the same way. Maybe he still cried. Maybe he was pumped. Like, but kind of doesn't sound like what you picture in your head. I'm going to the Olympics. Like, it's something happens only 4 years for a track and field athlete. That's such a huge thing. Like, there's no greater honor than to, go and compete for your country. And he did that, and he did it to his best of his ability. Threw the fucking shot put as far as he could. Somebody else beat him. He thought it was, under the same conditions that same standards that he's held to. And it turns out, like, 3 years later or whatever it was, that's not the case.
Yeah.
That's weird. Like, that's a real mind fuck.
It is, because you lost the moment, right? Like, the moment that
in front of people and so on. And then all the people that you communicate with when you come back from that trip. I don't know if it was in Tokyo or where the Olympics were that year, but you come back from this trip. Oh, how'd it go? Or people saw it like, hey, congratulations, you won a silver. Yeah, I wish I got the gold. Like, there's all that shit. I'm going to train harder. Like, his whole life. Think about all that, right? The life trajectory of that guy could have been altered so much. Like, who knows? Maybe he was still training like a savage because he's like, I'm going to go back again and win that motherfucking gold medal. Yeah. Now he gets it handed to him at some ceremony at the airport. And, is he like, I got 2 more years of training. Fuck it. I won my gold. I'm retired.
Yeah.
I don't know. Weird.
No, absolutely. Like, potential sponsorships and opportunities, because at that time, that's when it is kind of a big deal. A few years later, no one's thinking about the shot put, sadly, right?
And imagine in like a fight or in jiu-jitsu, people saw you got beat. The other guy choked you out. The other guy made you tap or beat you on points.
Yeah, we talked about this previously, but like my thing with like drug testing and all that stuff, I just feel like if they tested everyone that podiumed, I think it would scare off a lot of people from actually doing it or from doing PEDs, because it's like, okay, yeah, I'm going to take this stuff and I want it to make me better than everybody. But if I accomplish that, then I have to somehow figure out and prove that I didn't take anything. And I just find it curious. Like, I was curious, like, why don't they do that for everything as far as drug tested stuff? Yeah, like if the people that got that win, put it that way.
Yeah,
top 3, they all get drug tested automatically.
Super Bowl, NBA championship, all that.
Right. Yeah.
Right, why not?
Yeah. I mean, the MVP, you're the first one. Yeah. Congratulations, you won the first drug test.
Yeah.
No, it would be interesting.
It would be. They do that in natural bodybuilding. Like the WNBF, at least, like they will test the winners of the shows.
That's awesome.
But in jiu-jitsu, I feel like maybe they're going to be doing this more often, which will be good. But the mind fuck is kind of rough. Andrew, you have Tom DeBlas's post over there, and I'm going to read it real quick. Tom DeBlas is like a staple in the jiu-jitsu community. He's a legend as far as no-gi and just jiu-jitsu is concerned. He's doing a lot of cool stuff. But he has this picture, and he said, "This is the last picture you will see of me without exogenous testosterone. I won my first Pan Ams, my first Nationals, my first ADC trials completely steroid-free. I was 27 when I started supplementing low-dose testosterone. Why am I telling you? Because I feel it's irresponsible if I don't. You also heard me say that everyone takes something. That's a bit irresponsible for me to say, because if you are under the age of 25 years old, I'm totally and utterly against you taking steroids. Your body is still developing. At high levels, yes, 98% of people, in my opinion, take something. The guy you see me competing against here, I'd be willing to bet on, is on a ton of stuff, and I didn't care." So this is where it gets weird, because Tom said he won big tournaments without taking anything. And at a certain point, he felt he had to start taking exogenous testosterone because he felt, well, for me to be at the next level, all the other guys are doing it. So I need to do it too if I want to be able to compete against the other guys. But it's still against the rules, right? So it's a tough thing because, like, I'm gonna be real, even myself, I know a bunch of people do think I'm taking shit. But sometimes when I see stuff like this, I'm like, damn, being able to recover like a madman would be amazing. Because, like, workouts are fatiguing, jiu-jitsu's fatiguing. But if you could wake up every day and just session after session, you're feeling like a beast, I get why that's the word I'm looking for. Appetizing. I get why that's appetizing. You know,
enticing.
Enticing. I
But
get
also
why it's
appetizing.
And also appetizing.
Yeah.
It looks like it might taste good.
Yeah.
You know, and also too, I think it's easy to be like, oh, well, I'll just, you know, I'm going to take like a little bit of this other stuff that's like kind of just, you know what I mean? Like there's gray area shit. Hey, what if I just took a little bit of Anavar? Like maybe that will give me the recovery I'm looking for. But am I going to get really, you know, popped? And nowadays there's so much access to so many different people. Like that would be a pretty easy search on the internet to kind of find out, hey, if I took 25 to 50 milligrams of Anavar for 6 weeks, would I test positive, you know, and having a, like whatever it is they test, usually they test your estroidal, your estrogen, I think, to your testosterone or something like that. And there's so many great coaches. There's so many people on the internet that talk about this stuff. Like I know behind the scenes people that know stuff that just would blow people's minds. It's crazy what's available. It's crazy what's out there.
Talking about Mr. Triana?
I'm not talking about anybody in particular.
No one.
But there's just a lot of options in terms of performance enhancing drugs. So even now, like, so these guys are going to test and like, oh, I don't think these leagues and federations and stuff, I think they want to make money. You know, I think they want good competition. They want some good battles, you know. A lot in some of these competitions, people are in a gi, so you can't see the body. It's different than what you see Gordon Ryan doing with no gi and stuff like that. But I still think it's helpful to have fit athletes that look good. And I think that there's so many different things that people can take that they're not testing for. And the athletes are aware of what they test for. The coaches are even more aware of what's tested for, and they know plenty of ways around that. So if this sport, if jiu-jitsu's already been pretty infiltrated with some performance enhancing drugs, those guys and many other people now, they're just not going to take testosterone. They're just going to take other stuff. There's so many ways around it. It's you know, we should have Jeff Nowitzki on the podcast again. He does the testing for the UFC. You know, are there people are there people in the UFC right now that have the belt that are using performance enhancing drugs, or someone would say, yeah, that's kind of an unfair advantage? Yeah, I would say so. I would say that, you know, I don't know for sure, but again, I think these tests aren't too hard to beat.
You know what though? Like the unfair advantage thing, and I know we've had this conversation a ton of times, but like, okay, testosterone and steroids are unfair advantages, but I mean, you look at, I think guys in the NBA are great examples, like a LeBron James, a Giannis Antetokounmpo, or whatever. These individuals had certain parents that allowed them. Giannis has an Achilles tendon that's longer than, I think, anybody, right? LeBron James
I want to see that guy play live.
Oh, God.
Right?
He's a fucking great bully. Like, I saw this clip of him bullying the Suns, and, like, Chris Paul was there, and he was just like this, thinking of who to pass
Wouldn't
to.
that be awesome to see him? Let's just see him live.
Yeah.
Damn,
But-
they were just here, I think.
Really?
Like last night, they just beat the Kings. It went down to the fourth. Anyways, go ahead.
But, like, being...
Genetics, parents.
Yeah,
Yep.
like, you can't pick your parents. And there are certain athletes, right, where people already assume LeBron takes a bunch of shit, or LeBron is on test or whatever. But, I mean, you see what he was doing when he was 19, 18 years old in the NBA. He was still scoring like 20, 22 points per game. He was a boy that was bullying young men, and he's been averaging like 25 through 30 his whole career. no amount of drugs is going to allow anybody to be able to compete with that guy. It's unfair advantage.
His mom showed like a basketball hoop that he dunked on when he was like 6 or something, or 5 or something. It was some age where you can't really jump very high. You know, like you see little kids, they jump a lot. And it wasn't, you know, we're not talking about like an 8-foot rim or anything like that, but it was pretty high. And I was like, that's wild. I've never seen a little kid be able to really jump very high. I mean, they can jump, they jump around, they hop around, but they don't really jump very high.
Yeah. And it's odd because, like, for example, I don't think it's good that there are drugs in the sport. And the goal for drug testing is to even the playing field. But if you do manage to even the playing field, with jiu-jitsu, technique is what matters, not purely physicality. But the guys who have the genetic gifts and that are also very technical, it's unfair.
Let me take some stuff, okay? My dad's 5'2". Cut me some slack here, right? You know?
And then it brings you
help me out over here.
It brings you to the Gordon Ryan thing, because when Nicky was on the show and he said, well, the reason why Gordon Ryan's so good, steroids, right? And even Gordon's game, his jiu-jitsu game isn't super explosive. He uses amazing technique. But if you see the way he looks and his transformation, drugs were a part of it, and he's been open about that. It makes you wonder, would he be Gordon Ryan without steroids? I mean, that's a legitimate question. I'm not trying to take away from the guy's skill, because he is the best. Yeah. But he's the best plus a little something, right?
Damn.
He's still the best, though.
Yeah, I think a lot of our decisions really guide and kind of put us in a certain direction. And I would just say for myself, like, I'm not the same without steroids. I don't know if I would have been able to build some of the things that I built. The slingshot probably wouldn't have even been created, because I tore my pec partially because I was on steroids. I was on performance-enhancing drugs that allowed me to handle more weight than I otherwise could do naturally. It allowed me to be at a higher body weight than I otherwise could have achieved naturally. It allowed me to have more muscle mass than I could achieve naturally. And maybe even it you know, so on the negative side, maybe it made my body tighter than normal.
Steroids plus Mark Bell equals slingshot.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, it's the path to the riches, right? I think, you know, and I think if you think about great musicians and great people over the years, people use like I think Jimi Hendrix was pretty famous for using like LSD, and there's, you know, a long list of the Beatles and just all these people using like psychedelics, and it's been around forever. You know, people have been utilizing drugs and alcohol to put them in a different frame or different state of mind to be able to achieve something different. And would they achieve the same thing without? I don't think so. I think maybe they would still be unique people, most likely. They still are probably driven in a lot of ways, but I think, you know, Arnold Schwarzenegger, maybe he never even comes to America without steroids, because the attraction to Arnold was how jacked he was at such a young age. I think Joe Weider saw him, you know, and so forth, and the rest is history. He's in fucking movies and winning Olympias, and you know, is Ronnie Coleman. Ronnie Coleman is Jay Cutler. Jay Cutler is Joe Rogan. Joe Rogan, without marijuana, things like. I'm not trying to discredit anything that anyone's done. I have the most respect for Joe Rogan and what he's done. But again, I think these things, the psychedelics and some of these things, they shape kind of part of who you are. And steroids have been a huge part of my life for like over the last 20 years.
Yeah. It's, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, just, you know, when we're talking about, you know, advantages and disadvantages, Mark, you've said, you know, something along the lines of like how successful you'll be. It could be dependent on like your zip code or your area code. And my son, he was doing some tricep push downs today on our dope ass free motion cable machine.
Wait a second, Andrew. Your son's only like 2, right?
Exactly. So here's my point.
We got to call Child Protective Services.
CPS.
Yeah, he's getting
too much tricep work.
Too much. He's getting jacked already. But, you know, depending, like, I don't know if he's going to compete in anything. Let's just, for the sake of this argument, say he does. He's at an advantage because he has a garage gym. You know, like he was born into that. Like, you know, maybe somebody else doesn't have access to a gym at all. And so like the first time they compete together is the first time that this other kid might start working out, or this other athlete, whatever it may be. And so like that got me thinking like, oh shit, he's in at in an advantage. That's tough to say.
Yeah.
And then in regards to like, the steroids and stuff, yeah, okay, let's just say that some governing body said, you know what? All right, open the floodgates. We're going to just, no more testing. You guys can do whatever you want because we're not going to stop you anyways. There would still be an advantage because we have some better responders to certain things. The top guy could share everything that he takes. And so now everyone's like, oh, that's the blueprint. It's, a gram of test and it's X and Y and Z. And so now when the next person takes it, damn, I still lost. Well, now I'm just going to take a little bit more. And it's still not going to work. Like the top guys will still be the top guys. But it's just funny because then people will be upset like, oh, he's just a better responder to the gear. So it's like, you can't really fix that by assuming or by opening up the floodgates and assuming that it's going to be even at that point.
Yeah. I mean, at the top of the things though, like we know, it's against the rules in the IBJJF.
And everybody knows that. It's not a surprise, right?
Not a surprise. But the thing is like the unfortunate aspect is that some of these things kind of helps these athletes recover. It helps these athletes not wear themselves into the ground. It lets them have longer careers. And that's a good thing. But like, it's still against the rules, even though like, that's what Cyborg was saying. This allows us to do this at a high level for a long time and bring attention to the sport. And that's great, but it's still against the rules.
Yeah, and maybe you got to get a petition going and get a bunch of people to sit out and say, let's not participate here any longer, and let's make a big deal of it, and let's see if they'll change the rules. Why? Like, one of the things to think about is what's the root reason why steroids are banned in a lot of sports. Is there a real reason? Does someone have medical evidence on why they're illegal? Or is it simply because people think it's an unfair advantage and they don't want like, okay, you're taking that and I chose not to take it. So now like what's at the root of why it's illegal? Some people will try to say it's dangerous. Okay, it's dangerous. Do you have medical proof that it's dangerous? Do you have medical proof that it's not dangerous? It's an interesting thing to examine. And what if people could be on stuff, but they got tested for like their health? Like if health was a concern, or what if there was, I mean, you start to get into like crazy stuff because now you're talking about this guy took a little extra, you're only supposed to take this much. That could get really weird really fast. But what if you took the safety part out of it and said, we're just going to make sure the athletes are safe and we're going to test and make sure their blood markers are like reasonable?
I think one thing is like, well, okay, this is the thing. NBA, NFL, MLB, big sports that people look at as like, this is legitimate, even though everyone, like guys can get away with doing certain things at the professional level, those things are still banned. Like when kids look at a high level basketball player, a kid's not like, okay, well, I got this skill and I got to take some test, right? It's like, I need skill. And those are respected sports, right? And jiu-jitsu, I don't think, if it starts being okay to do that, you'll see a lot of guys, or you already see guys who are young, 19, 20, 21, 22, who are black belts who are destroying. But now those guys are like, this is just part of the process. Cyborg, who's been in this game for a long time, all these guys who've been in this game for a long time, it seems that test is just part of the formula to being great. Or this is just part of the formula of being great. And then you're going to be seeing younger guys probably start hopping on stuff. There is already there's a competitor right now who they've mentioned is going through an arbitration process. And it's apparently a young kid who's doing really well, but he's going through an arbitration process because he got popped for something. So they haven't released the name yet because it's not finalized, but that's kind of just an example of how like, if this stuff is so normal, younger people are just going to start doing it. Just like you see in the bodybuilding side of fitness, you see these young 16, 17, 18-year-old TikTok kids who are like, oh, I guess it's time to start my cycle of tests since I've lifted for 2 years, or I guess I'm going to start some Tren, because you see these 21-year-olds doing Tren and they're open about it. That's the type of shit you'll see. And that's not good. We know that's not good.
It's also not good to put too much stock into any of these athletes. I mean, do you want your kids participating or doing anything that these athletes do recreationally? Like probably not, I do think that there needs to be like rules, right? Like there's got to be, because you're trying to have a competition that's somewhat equal for everybody. And we know, and we can talk about like, oh, well, it's not fair because that guy grew up down the street from, Hodger Gracie or whatever, right? Like we can make up as many excuses as we want. Like, fuck, that guy had access to the Gracies like from when the time he was 3. Like that's crazy. But in general, you're trying to set the rules a very particular way. So we all agree, like, this is the way we're going to fight. This is the way that we're going to play football. This is the way we're going to play soccer. And then within that agreement, we're hoping that we all kind of stay within that. And it's disappointing when somebody does something outside of that.
Yeah.
In football, you had some accusations against like the New England Patriots for like slightly deflating the football and things like that. And you would think to yourself, why in the fuck does it need to be in the rule book how much the football is blown up to? Well, because people will fucking cheat. They're going to find a way. Why is there so many checks with the uniform? They check your uniform over and over again in football, and you get fined if you're not wearing particular things or you're wearing something. It's because people are going to do whatever the fuck they want. They're going to try to advertise their own whatever during the Super Bowl, and they're going to put it on their arm or something like that. So there has to be like repercussions. There has to be a rule. And there's got to be a rule for everything. If you ever try to explain soccer to somebody, you ever try to explain football to somebody, you're explaining these rules to people and you're like, these rules are so fucking dumb. But you're like, yeah, there was this one time where this fucking team did this. There was this one time where this other thing happened. The New England Patriots, before Bill Belichick and before Tom Brady, they had, and they play it up a lot, so to make it sound even crazier, but an ex-convict came onto the field with a snowplow and plowed a spot dry for the kicker to kick his field goal. There was no rule about it then. So they got to put a rule in there. You can't drive a fucking snowplow on a game when it's snowing to try to gain an advantage. I mean, you got to make a rule for just about everything.
The South Park skit, do you remember that, where they were talking about like the Patriots, they cheated, and then they're like, no, we're going to clean it up. We're going to be honest this year. We're not going to cheat. We're just going to do our best. He's like, and then they lost. It's like, and then they cheated again, but they won, so nobody cared. So it's like, well, yeah, they keep winning. Nobody, like, people forgot about how they filmed other teams' practices,
right?
And they could call the plays before they could. It's like,
hey, Pat Project family, shut your fucking mouth. No, not really, but kinda. You should keep your mouth shut when you're asleep. Now, on the podcast, we've been talking about the importance of nasal breathing for years, and we've been talking about using mouth tape during your sleep for years, as it's going to help your sleep quality because you're going to be breathing through your nose. We had James Nestor, author of Why We Sleep. Actually, that was Matthew Walker, but James Nestor, author of Breathe. We had Patch McEwen. We've had so many people talk about the importance of taping your mouth and breathing through your nose when you sleep for your sleep quality, which helps your recovery, which helps every aspect of your health and fitness. So, hostage tape. If you want to get some of this to help you sleep better, and it also stays on your face if you're a bearded man, which is one of the big problems with mouth tape, head to hostagetape.com/power project. And there you can actually get the Power Project annual deal, which will give you a year's supply of hostage tape. 55 cents a day for tape, pretty much. And you'll be able to save $150 along with getting 2 tins, a year's supply of tape, and a blindfold. That is going to be something that you want to get your hands on. Links in the description, along with the podcast show notes. Shut your mouth. Dude, every athlete wants an edge. We're doing all this shit. We focus on getting good sleep. We have fucking cold plunges. We have a bed that regulates temperature. Like, we have all, like, that bed is an edge. Right? Because we know that better sleep leads to better recovery. So that's a performance. That's a big actually performance enhancer. So, but the drug side of things, it is different. It is exogenous. I don't know. But it's good that I think it's good that the sport hopefully is going to be a bit more stringent on that. But I don't know how you could possibly make it fair for everybody. Because once you open those floodgates, man, it's like there's some people who are like, well, I'm doing this, but if I do more, and then if I do more, and then if I do more, and it's just like some people, like someone's going to fuck themselves up. Someone will.
Oh, yeah.
You know what I mean? Because there's ways to do that shit safely, but someone will take it too far.
In jiu-jitsu, there's you know, in bodybuilding, I guess the three of us would agree that it would be, I mean, I guess impossible is not always a great word, but like it's next to impossible. It's like 99% not probable that someone could currently be an IFBB professional bodybuilder and compete on the Olympia stage without taking steroids?
On the Olympia stage, highly unlikely. I know a guy, Kendall Richmond, he just got his pro card as a classic physique pro, and he's natural. Now, it'd be dope if he could make it to the Olympia stage because he has an amazing physique. But currently, there are no natural bodybuilders or classic physique competitors on the Olympia level stage.
And the likelihood of somebody winning is even, right? I mean, it's just
the amount of size that those guys have. It's just,
right.
It's kind of insane.
Right. But in jiu-jitsu, there's a lot more at play than just your aesthetics and just your muscle mass. So maybe in jiu-jitsu, there's a lot more things at play than just things that are going to get really enhanced from performance enhancing. Now, I do recognize that performance enhancing drugs are going to amplify all of your training. So that's a big advantage. But I'm sure there are probably plenty of people right now winning big tournaments that aren't taking anything.
Absolutely.
Right?
Absolutely. There's a ton of guys that are winning tournaments that aren't on anything, right? That's the difference, though. Like bodybuilding kind of is a game of mom and dad and muscle insertions. Because a lot of the way you look and the way you build muscle is going to be based off your genetics and your parents. The top level of bodybuilding, natural or not, is a game of good mom and dad, good genetics. On the IFBB side, plus some drugs. The guys who still have the greatest genetics are going to end up on top. Look at Phil Heath, right? Like you can take as much. Yeah, that's Kendall right there. He looks fucking amazing. And he's natty. He's natty.
Looks big too.
Yeah.
And he's somebody that I seen in person. And it's not one of those things where it's like, oh, when you see him in person, then you can be like, okay, maybe they aren't. Like, he was somebody I was like, there's no fucking way. Like, I remember I came and talked to you right away, and I'm like, Nsima, there's no way.
Oh,
and you were like, he is. And I'm like, golly, like, he is big. He's a big dude. That's crazy.
But, like, you know, you compare him to a lot of the other guys that were on that stage. First off, he looks the best, but hopefully it'd be sick to see if he could get to the Olympia stage without taking anything. I wonder what he's going to do there. But again, that is a game of bodybuilding, and physique sports are a game of genetics. Because on the IFBB side, it doesn't even matter the drugs you take. The guys with the best genetics and the best drugs are going to beat everybody out. That's just facts, right? But jiu-jitsu, fucking sports, baseball, soccer, basketball, all of these, you can have great genetics, but they're still very skill-based. If you're someone who can build a lot of skill, you can get to the top of those sports without having to take stuff. You know, that's dope.
Yeah, Mark, really quick, I'm just trying to clarify because one of the competitors got popped for Tren.
Yeah.
I could be wrong, but it was as far as I understood, I thought it like destroyed your cardio and like you would get like Tren cough and it just made you like wheeze just like walking to the dumbbell rack and stuff like that.
Yeah, it certainly seems to bring its fair share of anxiety with it.
Ugh.
But I think that's like dose related. So, you know, I don't know what any of these jiu-jitsu guys know about anabolics and stuff like that. I'm assuming they probably don't know much. So the guy probably took it to be like lean and in good shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's probably not a smart move to utilize that drug. And if you were to utilize that drug for some particular reason, you'd probably use low dosage of it. But a low dosage of trenbolone goes a really long way. It's very strong. It's very powerful. You hear about us talking about it all the time. I mean, it's like a super steroid in a way. It's way stronger than like testosterone and stuff like that. But you know, I also think that we're not too far away, and it might already be out there already, but we're not too far away from things being way better than steroids. Steroids don't work nearly like good enough. They work pretty well. They can do some pretty good stuff. But it's more of a cascade of a bunch of different things when you have your like pharmacology tackle box, full of many different things, that would be something that could replicate somebody's genes a little bit. So if somebody could get an infusion of like IGF-1, growth hormone, testosterone, and all these different things on a daily basis, those kinds of things would move people in directions that like we've never seen before. But I also just think in general, there's going to be things that are way more powerful than steroids, probably coming pretty soon.
And what happens when you stop taking a quote low dose of Tren? Like, do you keep it all? Do you keep some of it?
It just depends on how long you've been off of something for, but you can't take something for like 6 months and then think that you're off now for 6 months, that it's going to really help you or assist you at all. It's probably not going to do anything.
I just wanted to clarify, because the way it was, phrased, it was just like, oh, I could just take a little bit and I'll be, it'll go a long way. But it's like, no, but if you stop, then so does the benefits.
Yeah.
Cool.
Yeah. It comes in and out of your system pretty quickly.
Tren's a good place to end this. What do you guys think? What do you guys think about this whole jiu-jitsu drug bust? Is it good for the sport? Is it bad for sport? Let us know in the comments.
I was just going to say, I think it's good because like the UFC, when it got sold for, I don't know how many billions of dollars or whatever it was, they wanted to clean it up to legitimize it. It wasn't considered a real sport, right? ESPN wouldn't even cover it, and now it's on their fucking app. They couldn't compete in New York, and now that's like one of their biggest, venues. So I think it's a great thing. So I'm curious to know what everyone else thinks.
Yeah, no field goals, soccer kicks while the guy's on all fours. No steroids. Like, let's clean it up and not have it be so barbaric. And I think they did a great job of having people recognize that it's a sport. And Joe Rogan, I think, was a huge part of that. The way that he announces and the way that he comments and the way that he's explaining what's going on. Because people used to boo. They'd be like, boo, when...
We just want to see the haymakers.
Yeah, when people were wrestling. But now if someone's grappling and someone does a counter, you hear the crowds like excited by it. Because now people are recognizing like, oh, that was, that's probably really fucking hard and really athletic to do. In terms of performance enhancement, I just want to say that, again, the amplifier is what it does with your training. It's not something that like you would take for like 3 weeks and notice some crazy surge of strength or anything. Although you could have a little bit of increase, it's something that if someone was to utilize it for a while, along with training, it could be a major amplifier of your training. So you could just say like it maybe makes your training like maybe like 2% less difficult, but it's 2% less difficult each day. So you know how you kind of wear it from life and from girlfriend, wife, business, all these different things, doing your sport, lifting. You just kind of wear it from one day to the next sometimes. Well, steroids allow you to not feel that same way. It's like you're not dragging around that backpack all the time. So that's what they do for you, and I think that's what the big deal is. Andrew, take us on out of here.
Sorry, caught me in mid-cough. All right, Cornfeds, drop those comments down below. Let us know what you guys think about today's conversation. Hit that like button and subscribe to the podcast. And head over to powerproject.live for all things podcast related. Follow the podcast at MB Power Project all over the place. My Instagram is at I am Andrew Z. Nsima, where are you at?
Discord's down below, guys. At Nsima Inyang on Instagram and YouTube. At Nsima Inyang on TikTok and Twitter. Mark?
At Mark Smelly Bell. Strength is never weakness. Weakness never strength. Catch you guys later. Bye.